Hi guys, welcome back to our Non-Toxic Podcast. I'm Hannah, and today we do have a guest, but I'm starting off the episode because we had to do a little record so she could leave and go to her actual job because some people have to do that during the day, and I forget sometimes. So we have Hannah Hicks joining us later in the episode. I will put the tag in around this time if you want to skip ahead and just see her, but I promise I'm only going to talk for a few minutes because I just have a few things to say. So first of all, you might notice this is a new set. I'm in the same podcasting studio. This is just a new addition that they had, and it's just a little bit cuter and girlier. I love where we had been recording before. It's actually just like a stone's throw away. I'm looking at the other set right now, but I wanted to address it because you might be thinking, what the heck happened? You also might just be listening to it on audio and not care at all. So if you do care, it's the same studio. It will be opening to the public very soon. So just stay tuned. And if you have an interest in starting a podcast or doing anything else, I think this is the place to be. So shout out to Soapbox Studios. Can't wait to hard launch. Next, I have a God wink that I'd like to share with the class. So God wink to me is just anytime you feel like God is speaking to you or has, I don't know, you have a moment where you're like, oh, that was from God. And even in this case, I don't even know if I would consider it a wink as much as I would say this is a full-on God moment where I feel like God kind of like smacked me upside the head. But let's just backtrack. So a few weeks ago, I was at church with my husband. We went on Saturday evening and we were supposed to go meet my in-laws for dinner afterwards. And they had baptism at the beginning of the service. At the end of it, it was an amazing message. The pastor came up and he was like, hey, if anybody felt called to get baptized, I'm still in my shorts. I'm still soaking wet. If anyone wants to get baptized, like the pool is still open, we would be more than happy to give you that moment now. So someone had approached our pastor after the service, and another pastor who did our counseling before we got married came up and he was like, hey, there's a couple men wanting to get baptized, but their families aren't here. Would you mind just to stay and support them? So of course we said, yeah. And we had a moment where we were like, oh, should we? Because your parents are going to get mad if we're late. So we ultimately decided like, no, we need to stay. That's part of being a church family. So we stayed for the baptism, and it was two grown men. And for some reason, grown men showing any act of faith or emotion in any way just always makes me emotional. So watching them both get baptized and these two complete strangers hugging and just feeling so overcome with their own joy and faith, I was obviously crying. So it was a moving moment anyways. And I'm like, I'm so happy that we were at the service and we got to witness these two people just feel so called to want to give their lives to Christ and to be baptized. And that was just so powerful. Fast forward, I was super excited a couple weeks ago because a professor from one of the local universities had reached out to me and wanted to have me come speak to her class in the fall. And I went to school online, so I didn't really have a traditional college experience. And the possibility of getting to go guest lecture is really cool in general. But then the fact that it would be in a college classroom, which I never really got to experience, I was just super excited about the whole thing. So she had asked me to meet for coffee and discuss what my story was with my business and what I could potentially talk about in the class, things like that, and just how she runs her class, what to expect, and really just get acquainted. So we met for coffee, and this was on a day last week that I had a nonprofit event the entire day. I volunteer all day every year. It's always an amazing day, but it's very taxing, to be completely honest with you, and I'm always dumb every single year, and I wear heels for the entire day because there's an evening part and then there's a setup part, and I'm like, oh, cute outfit, and then I regret it. Did the same thing this year. You'd think I would learn. It's my 7th year, but whatever. So I knew it was going to be a long day. I had this meeting, then I had a tiny little window where I had a project to finish for a client, which I don't normally have such a fast, high pressure turnaround time, but a client just needed something done for this presentation, and I really wanted to get it done for them. So I had to go to this meeting, find a coffee shop or somewhere to work to knock this presentation out for them, finish it, send it over to them, and then go to the event all day. So I get to the coffee shop, and the first text I get is from another client that said, hey, are we still on for today? And my heart sank. And I have not done that. I don't think ever. I've never forgotten to put something on my calendar. I've had times where I'm running late or I've, double booked myself and caught it in advance, but I've never had a moment where a client texts me and is like, hey, are we still shooting today? And it just did not make it on my calendar. So I'm not sure if we talked about it in person and I just didn't write it down or if I completely dropped the ball, but I am so hard on myself when it comes to those things because I hold myself to a pretty high standard, and part of that is showing up to things. So I texted back and I said, I'm so sorry. I completely double booked myself. I'm volunteering at this event all day. Like I'm so sorry. Anytime that works for you, I will make it work. And I don't even want to admit that because I would like you guys to think that I'm perfect at my job and I never make mistakes. But unfortunately, I do. So then I'm feeling guilty. I show up to this meeting and I can just tell I'm distracted. I'm thinking about the presentation I have to finish. I'm thinking about how I dropped the ball. It's a gloomy day. It's going to be a long day. And I'm just getting so in my own head. I can feel myself like tensing up, and I'm only half listening to what she's saying. So in the middle of the meeting, I say this quick prayer. I'm like, God, just give me peace. Let me know that, you're with me, and help me to compartmentalize these things that are stressing me out. I know that they will not matter. And there's only so much I can do. I can't rush through this meeting to get a presentation done. That's not good. I can't double book myself, and I can't make this day go by any faster and be less emotionally draining. So I basically was just praying for peace, and that I was able to be present in the moment so that I could enjoy the day and the meeting. So I did that, and then I made a decision to kind of zone back in and say, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going to focus. So I zoned back in, and we're talking, and at the end of it, we're kind of wrapping up, and she says, well, where do you go to church? We never talked about that. And because I'm pretty open about my faith in meetings, so I'll talk about, when people ask me how I got started, I'll talk about where I feel like God's role was in all of my decisions. So she asked me where I went to church, and I said, Life Church on South Springfield. And she said, my son just got baptized there. I said, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I know we just had baptism a couple weeks ago. And she was saying, yeah, it was the craziest thing. He went to a service with his fiance, and he wasn't planning to get baptized. He would have wanted all of us to be there because we all are, religious. We just go to different churches. And he actually left the parking lot after the pastor had made a final call for, last end of service baptisms. He left the parking lot and just felt like he was so called that he had to go back in. So he turned around, came back in, asked the pastor if there was still time, and he ended up getting baptized, and some of the congregation had stayed to watch. So I was like, wait, was this a Saturday evening service? And she said, yes. I said, was it him and one other man? And she said, yeah. He said there was one other man there that he didn't know. I said, I was there. I watched your son get baptized. And she started bawling in the middle of the coffee shops. And of course I'm crying too, because I'm an empathetic crier. And I just said, I had such chills in that moment. And I was telling her that it was the most beautiful moment. I cried when it happened, just because it was so touching and so personal. And I'm so sorry that you couldn't be there, but I can assure you, like, God was present in that moment, in that room, and there were people there cheering for them. There was so much love, and it was just the most amazing sense of community, and just so powerful. Like, it stuck with me even before this connection was made. And she was, of course, saying, I'm so happy my son made that choice. I'm so proud of him. I was sad that I wasn't able to be there, but now I just know, like, she said that it was a God thing for her to have me have seen it. So I started my day off, and it was just so humbling, because the foundation for that moment, that was laid a month ago, before she had even reached out to me, before she had messaged me on LinkedIn. And I had no idea who these men were, just felt called to stay, felt everything else. And then now to be able to give a mom that moment of, like, it was amazing. It was so special. I just felt like a breath of fresh air simultaneously. Like, I was crying in the coffee shop, had chills. And then it was just an emotional day, because the fashion show is basically for breast cancer survivors. They walk in the show every year. Every model is a survivor. I volunteered. My mom walked in it whenever I was in 8th grade, right after she had finished her chemotherapy treatment. And I've been volunteering since I was 18. So, we're in this thing. We've been doing it for a long time. And it's just the most amazing, special event. And, every year there's some models that don't make it back because they've either had a relapse of their cancer or they're in active treatment, and some of them have sadly passed away. And it's just such a heavy thing to go through, because as much as we're celebrating these women that have survived, there is always an undercurrent of such sadness, because there are so many women that haven't. And every year there are younger and younger survivors. And being in the wings of the show and seeing women that are around my age in their upper 20s and low 30s and having already battled breast cancer at this age is so scary. And even seeing them with their young children is just terrifying. So take this as your sign to go get checked, get a mammogram, get whatever scans you need to. If you have breast cancer in your family, get genetically tested. And if you need resources, please let me know, because I have all of them. So just make sure that you're taking care of your health. It's so scary, and your health is not something to gamble with. But it was such a powerful thing, and it definitely humbled me and snapped me back into perspective of thinking, God is in control. And I know I don't get super preachy on the podcast necessarily, because I never want people to be like, all right, let's get to it. But it is a big part of my life. And that was just a moment I felt like God was very present in, and I don't know, I just got so much peace. And I was reminded, everything I do on a day-to-day basis is, important. It pays the bills, but it's not everything. And that moment I felt very clear about what everything actually was. And while we're deep, I have another quote for you guys. So I saw this quote on Instagram. It was one of those slides that you just, you're looking at memes, and for some reason I thought this was going to be a funny one, and it turns out to be super deep. But this quote said, how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And it just hit me for some reason. Like quotes just resonate deeper than usual. And that one got me. And I was like, how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And here's what it means to me, because if you're not ready to hear that one, if it's not speaking to you, you might be like, what are you talking about? If I spend my days stressed, rushing through them, complaining, like I have to do this, this, and this, I have all these errands, it's not a fun day, I have to get through everything, I'm spending my whole day rushing to the grave. Like I'm spending my life rushing to the weekend, rushing to everything. You're just trying to get through it. So if I'm just trying to get through every day, that's how I spend my day. That's how I spend my life. I'm just trying to get through my life. And if you're somebody who lives for the weekend, which I've been guilty of, especially in the past, whenever I worked 9 to 5, then you're living for the weekend. You're just living for the end of your life. You know, you're not really living. And that completely changed my perspective. And I was like, oh, how I spend my days, like how do I spend them? And that's been just bouncing around in my little empty cranium for the past couple of days since I saw it. And it just, every time I start to get into a funk or I start to get into a little mood or something else, it's like how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And I'm immediately like, how am I spending my day? And I know that that's not realistic to think that you're going to spend every day being happy and spend every day just jovial and happy as can be. That isn't the truth unless you're probably heavily medicated. That could be the case. I am not. But that just gave me so much perspective. And when I think about, you know, how is my life? What's my dream life? You think about the occasional things, or at least I do. I think about the occasional trips, the vacations, the occasional travels, and the big things, and define my life by that. I don't think about the day to day and the little things that you do in your house and the people that you talk to, about nothing significant, and the commutes. And I don't want to be somebody who my life is only defined by the big moments and the big trips that I took and the big achievements. And because those are sparse, those are few and far between. And I don't, even being fortunate to have traveled quite a bit in the past year or so, I don't want those to be the only things that have defined the entire year. And it just has changed my entire perspective, and to think how you spend your days is how you spend your life. I want my days to be spent singing as I'm driving, talking to the barista, talking to the cashier at different places, calling a friend, doing impromptu visits with people if I have a chance to stop by, not rushing in and out of things, actually enjoying workouts and not just thinking like, all right, I got to get this done, not being on my phone all the time. Because if I spend my days, you know, with 12 plus hours of screen time outside of work, I know sometimes I have to be on my phone, but if I spend my days on my phone, that's how I spend my life. I don't want to spend my life on my phone. I don't think I'll ever look back and think, you know, I wish I got more TikTok time in. I wish I spent more time scrolling. That's just not true. So this whole quote has just been rocking my world. And in addition to that, we started watching Ted Lasso, and I am such a skeptic with everything popular, even though I am not that different. I like many popular things. I love Taylor Swift. I love Marvel. I love coffee. I'm very basic in terms of my interest. So I don't know why I am so hesitant and dig my heels in so hard when it comes to liking things that are popular, because once I do, I love them. So Ted Lasso has been blowing up the world for the past couple of years since it's been on. And I'm like, what is this show? What are we even talking about? It can't be that good. It's about soccer. Like, what is it? I don't care. So we finally started watching it. It is maybe the best show ever. It's just the most beautiful, beautiful combination of comedy and soul, and the characters are so personable, and there's an ensemble cast. There's so many people in it, but you care about all of them. They all have their own little storylines. And Ted Lasso, as the main character, he is just so enigmatic and funny, but he's also nuanced and layered, and there's so much depth to him. And he has the best attitude. He's so happy-go-lucky, but he also isn't happy all the time. And I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but he struggles with anxiety. And it's just very vulnerable in the portrayal of how this man that seems like he's just a ray of sunshine has his ups and downs as well. We haven't even finished it yet. We've gone through 2 seasons in about 4 days because we watched it last weekend. Took a little break during the week because we'd be doing stuff, and then watched it this weekend. And now I have a feeling that we're going to binge it and finish season 3, and then I will cry and then probably rewatch the whole thing 15 times. So bear with me. But it's just such a beautiful show, and it's a comfort show because it's happy and there's so many good things. It's funny, it's light, but it also is very heavy and very, I don't know, I'm going on. It's an amazing show. I'm not going to be a Rotten Tomatoes critic, but I would give it certified fresh. It just also has made me change my perspective because the main character, Ted, he just continues to handle things with such happiness, and people wrong him and he forgives them immediately. He has a good attitude. People call him names. He's just kind to them. And I'm like, you know what? I could be more like Ted Lasso. I really could. I could just be more positive, be more uplifting. And honestly, I could use more metaphors because he is a big fan of a metaphor and a pun. So I'm always on the lookout to incorporate more puns into my life. But it just, everything around me has made me check my attitude. And I'm generally a pretty positive person. I'm not negative, but I do catch myself getting into my own head and more so just wishing things away or breezing through them and kind of thinking this is just a period that I'm killing time until this, or this is whatever, and this is the big thing. Even during the day, like I'll think about my little commute as just means to an end, and like, why can't my commute be happy too? Like, why can't everything be happy? So I don't know. I'm trying my best. And I also know that I've been through phases where everything feels like, amazing, life is great, and the sun is shining. And then sometimes you just don't feel that way. And there's not really a rhyme or reason. It's just how life is. And sometimes you feel heavier than others. So right now I'm kind of in the middle ground where, I don't know, like, you know how gravity is higher on some planets and it's lighter on other planets. I feel like I'm kind of just on Earth right now. Gravity is not excessive, but it is present. So there have been times in my life where I'm on the moon, I'm just jumping all around, I'm weightless and carefree and life is great. And then sometimes I feel like I'm on Mars where I weigh like 3 times as much and everything is harder and just basic tasks feel more cumbersome. See, there I go with the metaphors. I am Ted Lasso personified. But it's just a constant exercise and reminding myself that things might be big and heavy, but everything is only as serious as I make it. And I don't want to be somebody who makes life out to be this big, dark, doom and gloom thing. Even whenever I'm going through difficulties, then I don't know, just kind of being in control of your own mind. Like yesterday I was struggling for no good reason. I mean, I have my reasons, of course, but I was just having a rougher day and my body was just feeling not so great. And then I was mentally not doing so great and just little things. And I was like, I know I have a right to be sad, but I don't want to give myself a free-for-all ticket to just wallowing. So I kind of made my decision. I'm going to give myself today to throw a pity party. I'm going to sit in my emotions and complain to my husband and cry if I need to. Surprisingly, I really didn't need to cry, but I had the go-ahead if necessary. And just take it easy and not try and push through it or shove my feelings down. But I decided that when I woke up today, I was not going to sit there anymore. I was not going to be in that place. And that is what I did. So I let myself be sad. I didn't work out yesterday. I didn't go to spin class. I didn't do anything. I sat in my hammock and listened to the birds and I drew depressing photos. Then we watched Ted Lasso and then I went to bed. So I just let myself be sad and kind of be bummed out. But today I woke up and I was like, no, it's a good day. I already had my time. I threw myself the pity party. I felt my emotions. I didn't shove them deep down. And I'm done with that because I don't want to live a life of being sad. Let's see. Did I have anything else to say? I really don't think that I did. Those were the few housekeeping things I had to announce to you. Also, I got several messages that concerned me to varying degrees. I got a lot of messages about the toenails and how everyone was thanking me for cluing them in. I think there was a lot of sarcasm there, but you're welcome. We are in this together. If my toenails fall off, you guys are going to know about it. Next, someone told me that nerds clusters cause cancer. So it was nice knowing you guys. I really have enjoyed life while I've been living it, but if nerds clusters and their excessive amount of red 40 do take me, then just know that I went out with a smile. So life is good. And anything else? Nope, I think that's it. So this is actually post-interview with Hannah. She had to go sling some lattes, but let me go ahead and give her the introduction. Hannah Hicks, an amazing person whom I love so dearly. She is about to join us. If you're watching the episode, it will be in chronological order. And thank you so much for listening, as always, and enjoy the interview. Bye, guys. Hey, guys, we're here with Hannah Hicks, one of my favorite people in the whole entire world.
Hello.
I am so happy that you've finally been on the podcast. We've been talking about this for like a year.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Basically.
Yeah.
You were actually one of the first guests that I wanted to have on, but we weren't really doing guests at that point, and it was in a weird limbo where we're like, do we have one person and then just never anybody else again? Now that we're doing guests, it's like we finally have our schedules lined out, which is amazing.
Yes, I love it. You know, kids and work and all the things.
All the
way,
things.
but
Yeah.
Here we are.
We cross paths probably daily.
Absolutely.
At Urban Grounds or in the drive-thru.
Yes.
Speaking of, give me your lowdown. How did you get to Springfields?
Yeah.
What's your history here? What do you do now? Everything for the people.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, and my family moved here when I was in 4th grade. So I've been here ever since, except for a couple spurts where actually my husband and I moved back to Denver for a little bit, but it was just too pricey and wanted to be back here. And so when I came back here, I started working at Parkview High School, which is where I met Callie. And
amazing.
Callie's the owner of Urban Grounds. I actually was her secretary for I think 2.5, almost 3 years.
See, I'm learning things I didn't even know.
Yeah. And so I was her secretary. She was the A+ coordinator. And then whenever she decided to open Urban Grounds, I was basically like, listen.
Where you go, I go.
I'm coming. Like, this is a package deal.
You said, not sure if you wanted me to come with you, but I am.
Exactly.
Just so you know.
For sure. So we in, while there, made the logo and created all the ideas. And and so now I'm the GM and the creative director at Urban Grounds. I do all the recipe creation. I run the social media, do the marketing.
I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you so much.
Big fan of your work.
I get to get a lot of inspo from, the best.
Oh, I am going to blush right now. It's been, just over a year and a half, right?
Yeah, so we'll hit 2 years in August, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we'll be open for 2 years in August, and which is just crazy. I honestly cannot believe that it's been that long.
It's really hard for me to wrap my head around because I can't picture my life and days without Urban, but I was late to the train. Yeah. So I know I'd followed Urban, obviously, because I wanted to hop on the forefront of the Springfield Pop Culture, which was the newest coffee shop in town.
Right.
And it's approximately 7.5 minutes from my home. But I followed, and I just wasn't, at the time that you opened, I was doing a lot of business up in Brentwood, so I was at the press all the time because that's just where all my meetings took me. And I still love the press. I just don't have as much in Brentwood anymore, so I'm not there as frequently. But for the longest time, I followed you and I followed Urban, and I just hadn't made it up there, and I felt like such a fraud, but I hadn't made the journey. And then finally, whenever I got there, I felt like I already knew you because of social media. It's that age-old thing where it's like, oh, I feel like I've known you for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
And we started off just chatting at the shop, and then you obviously have recommended so many amazing drinks to me, which is the biggest vote of confidence and trust. If I can just say, oh, whatever Hannah wants.
It's just my love language, making people something good.
You have that. It's so special, and this is going to sound really dumb, but I feel like bartenders, not my necklace being so far backwards, but I feel like bartenders and baristas have this special gift where it isn't taken as seriously as it should, because you get to know people on such a different level because you see them all the time in different states. You get to, and just the feeling of being seen when someone's like, I think you would really like this. And then you do, based on something as simple as coffee, like the fact that you pay attention to what I like and what other people like enough to make a recommendation. Oh yeah. And then multiplying that by however many people you see a day.
Well, and I think that's something that we talk about as a staff a lot, and just Callie and I talk about, as her as a business owner, one of the best things that we love about the shop is people do feel that way. We have so many regulars. I mean, we have people that come in 5-6 times a week. Yeah. No exaggeration. Yeah. And,
You're not naming names.
Yeah, some people. Yeah. And it's been so fun to make relationships with these people. And I mean, I've met some really great friends. I mean, you and I have become so close, and just different people that I've been able to connect with. And it's such a cool thing to see.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a couple that comes in multiple times a week, and the husband gives me crap about being a Broncos fan, and we have this banter, and it's just so fun. It's just great to have those relationships and see that it does, it can brighten someone's day. Absolutely. Even if it's something as silly as coffee, just seeing that
I've told you so many times before, because I always get in my feels and send you these lengthy voice memos, but I think it's so special how, and you probably don't even realize how impactful it is, even for me, running from one thing to the next, getting to start my day with a familiar face. I can't put a price or words to how amazing that is. Yeah. And obviously I love you as a friend too, but even before we started to get closer outside of Urban Grounds, it's just so nice to know that I'm going to go there and I'm going to see someone who's going to ask about my day, and I love to just see your smiling face, and just having that interaction, it just makes the whole day better. And that's why I love the area, Springfield, and why I don't think I will ever leave, just because it's small enough that you have these intimate connections with people that you encounter just in your average life. Oh, yeah, for sure. But at the same time, it's big enough to support a concept like Urban, where it's the coffee and the plant lab. Yeah, and I think it's just the best. But you probably have no idea how many people you've impacted just by doing your job. Yeah, well, I hope so, honestly. That's something that since I was little, I'm a helper. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, you know, I am definitely a helper, a fixer. And so that's something I've always wanted to do. Right. And, that was honestly one of my worries before starting this is okay, Hannah, you have always wanted to help people. Right. And now you're going into coffee and creative, and how is that putting those two together? And I think over time I've learned it is, it's little stuff is when I'm sad, there's certain things that I love to go get. So knowing that we have a place that can be that for people, that fills my cup in that way. That's so special. It's just a nice, and then, with the creative part, I love cooking. I love recipes. I love doing all that. And so, creating these things and seeing people just love them. Yeah. That's a really cool thing. I'm sure it's so fulfilling. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, not that I I don't jinx anything, knock on wood, but you guys kind of have the Midas touch. It feels like everything you do just turns to gold. Like Bunko has been such a hit. I went for the first time. Again, I was so late to the train, but it was so much fun. If you guys haven't been, they do Bunko once a month. When's the next one?
It's going to be the first Thursday in May. So we'll be posting it this week. So definitely get tickets.
It is such a blast. It's like $15. It's so inexpensive to go.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. The food is great. You had the cute little mini donuts last time. I had about 16.
Yes.
So they were fantastic. But the last theme was teenies and weenies. So creative.
Yep.
But all of your drinks, the innovations, you have the classics down, like just the classic vanilla latte. Everything is amazing, but you have so many cold foams and like just the innovations that you guys come up with blow my little pea-sized brain because I am an avid coffee consumer, but I don't know how to make anything. I have an espresso machine. I can froth the milk, but it's never the same. And I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the love.
I would agree. There's definitely like, even now I'll go to different coffee shops and, it'll be good, but it's like, it's just not quite the same. And something that's different about us too, and something that, drives a lot of passion for me is all of our syrups are made in-house except for 2 of them. And so that's another really cool thing.
Yeah.
It's like, so often when you go somewhere and you get a vanilla latte, it's going to taste
the
same vanilla latte you would get anywhere at like a big box store or whatever. And so having a homemade syrup is that's something different that I think drives people too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't hurt that it's, like I said, right by my house. I pass it every time I go to Springfield. But I think I would go out of the way just because it's one of those connections. Like I go to seek people out or I go to see, and there's been times where I'm like, I really don't even need the coffee. I always want a coffee, but I'm like, I don't really need one, but I want to go see my friends. And now I've made so many connections with the other girls there and the team is just fantastic. I'm a huge fan. I literally preach urban grounds every time. The only reason I don't have a coffee right here is because I just came from there.
That's very true.
I had a meeting this morning. I had the moon mallow iced. Usually I get it hot, but it was, which I think I was saying it wrong last time because I was reading my notes from the last one so I could write the notes for this one. And I had put moon pie latte and I'm like, that's not right.
That's what it's modeled after. So,
but it's
you were
less cute.
You were close.
I'm a fake fan.
No, that is honestly the moon mallow. So for everyone listening, it's graham cracker infused milk with mocha and marshmallow syrup, and it's seriously like one of the best drinks I think I've had. The milk is so good.
It's so good. What was that drink you made for me the one time that I was like, just whatever you think?
Ooh, I did the graham cracker milk with brown sugar.
Oh my gosh, it was heaven.
Yeah, that was like the Pop-Tart one.
I haven't known what to ask for, and I hate to go up to the girls and be like, Hannah made me this one thing. I don't really know what it was, but here's how it tasted. Yeah. It had notes of Pop-Tart and cinnamon, and they'd be like, can you just order off the menu for once in your life?
Just stop.
Yeah, they'd be like, can we just stick
No, I
to
think
it?
that happens to them quite often.
They're like, Hannah, can you stop?
Yeah, I tell people, I'm like, oh, well, I do it this way with a little splash of this, and then they're like, just no.
Speaking of, what are you drinking? Let's tell the people.
So right now, I did less complicated a little. Right now, I'm drinking a iced matcha with 2 pumps of vanilla and coconut milk. Usually, I do the same thing, but I do a little splash of heavy cream in it because it just makes it like super creamy. But I'm in quite the matcha phase. I think my heart is not.
It's thanking you.
Yeah, my heart said espresso. We need a break.
Yeah, it's gonna be a no.
Yeah, we need a break. So,
yeah, I've been through those phases. Usually I don't listen to my heart, unfortunately, and that's why I have the shakiest hands known to man. That's why I'm always sitting like this, like holding something.
Yeah, it's like
because if I'm trying to sit still, I'm just over here twitching, and it doesn't make for good television.
Oh yeah,
I have 2 orders because everyone has, in my opinion, 2 coffee orders. You have one that you'd get for yourself or that you would mobile order, and then one that you give whenever people ask you, like, what do you want?
I love that.
Because you don't want to give, like, I'm not going to say, I want a Monstera with breve and toffee nut and cold foam. Because I'm like, what on earth? You have to go and pronounce that. Like, can you picture my husband going in and being like, can I get a Monstera?
He would just show it to me.
He would say, do you know what Hannah wants?
Yeah.
And see what happens. But then you have one that you give to people that is just like the easier version to order.
Yeah.
So then I would do the toffee nut usually at Urban, or most recently it's been the moon mallow.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great way to do it. You do have to have like your complicated like bougie order that has all the things. And
I was talking to Austin last night. I'm like, how much weight do you think I would lose if I just stopped drinking coffee? And he said, that's your main nutritional. Oh, it's not even nutritional. That's just your main thing that you consume.
There's a little protein in cream. I think about a latte, like a cup of milk is like 8 grams of protein.
And there's healthy fats in milk, right?
Honestly, it's a nutritional
I'm drinking that
balance.
whole milk, But honestly, I was thinking about this and we were having a conversation about how it seems like, at least in my circle, and maybe it's just amplified by social media, so many people are doing 75 hard, or they're doing dry whatever month, or they're cutting out different things. And I've always been like, why? Why are you cutting it out? And I have gone through different phases where I get more intense with my fixations, and sometimes it's health and fitness. And I have a lot of people that I really admire that have done these different things. And then we were having this whole chat, like, should I do 30 days no alcohol? Should I do this? Should I go no dairy or just do like a challenge? And Austin was like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And part of it is because I'm really not in like I'm not in a situation where I want to like, I'm trying to lose 5 pounds or I'm trying to de-bloat. It's not like health motivated.
Right.
But it's more of everyone is kind of doing it. And then they talk about how great it is for your mental health.
It's like you feel like you should be doing it too because everyone's posting about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then part of it is like, well, I want to seek the mental clarity and I want to challenge myself and do these things. But then at the same time, if you start to cut out the things that bring you joy just for the sake of discipline, when does it stop?
And I think that like I think about that a lot. You know, I think those programs and whatever, you know, things that people want to do, I think they're great. And I think for some people they work great. I think for others like myself, and I'm sure you as well, like those don't work great for me because when I do cut out all those things that I love, and if I do have a little bit of it, then I'm like downward spiral.
Yes.
You know, like, oh, well, it's over. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like nothing will,
all or nothing personality.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What is it? Moderation. Moderation has never worked well for me.
No.
So I have to like maximize every habit that I have. And for me, what works best is maximizing my love for exercise while also maximizing my love for sugar. And somewhere there's like a cancel out. But I think that, of course, to each their own, but it was just this thing where you kind of feel like you're not doing something if it's not challenging. And right now there's nothing by way of my diet or fitness that I'm really challenging myself, even with running.
Yeah.
If I go out for a run, I really don't have a goal. I'll say like, I want to run like at least 3 miles today. And sometimes that means I do exactly 3 and I stop. And sometimes that means I end up with 8, but I never have a goal because my body feels so different every single time that I go out.
Yeah,
And I don't want to go out and have a goal and say like, oh, I'm training for this. My goal is I have to run 6.5 miles at this pace because then I don't know. I'm just if I start training for something, inevitably I will lose my love for it because then it becomes an obligation.
Yes.
But I don't know. I think it's just nice to be able to do what I enjoy doing to the amount that I enjoy doing it that day. And if I start to incorporate those things like I'm not doing dairy, or I'm not doing this, then it just is adding unnecessary challenge to my day.
Yeah. And I think too, like now, I guess in society, you know, they say like hustle culture is so big. And I think that plays into that. And I would agree. And to a point, you know, I think that that's very much needed. Like, you know, you gotta grind, you gotta work hard. Like you gotta do the hard stuff to get to a place where you can, you know, feel better. But at the same time, I think also at the place where I'm at in my life, like the past 3 months or so, you know, it's been like, okay, yeah, I want to work hard, but also where can I give up so that I can give more in different places?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so like for things like, okay, a 75 hard, like, yeah, realistically I could and need to and should for health do that, but that would take me out of so many different places. Right. You know, and so I think it's like, it's such a hard balance.
It
because
is.
you do want to do that because, you know, it is meaningful and you need to work hard and you need to, you know, sometimes it means sacrificing things that you love. And, but at the same time, it's like, okay, is that the best right now?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not in a stage where you need that extra structure and sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm in a stage where I genuinely just need to channel all my energy into something and for that to drive me. But sometimes I think that we get so pressured by society to give ourselves unnecessary like confines to work within to make it feel like we're doing more. When in reality, I think it's okay to have seasons of your life where there's no set goals, there's no set challenge, and you're not pushing yourself. You're just in kind of, in one hand, it could be in survival mode, which I know that we've talked about before. Whenever you're grieving and going through different things, then you just have to focus on getting through every day and making the most of every day. But at the same time, if you're in a stage of life where life is just good, I think that's okay. And you don't have to complicate it unnecessarily.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, being in that stage when it is good is, and something that I've been told a lot recently is like, when it's good, enjoy it. Yeah. Like live in the good. And I have 2 kids. And so like, that's something super important as they grow up is like those good days, like being present and living in them and not worrying about like, oh yeah, it's a good day right now, but I need to go work out later. I need to do this, or I shouldn't be eating this, or blah, blah, blah. Like that's just kind of big for me right now.
No, that's huge. Tell us about your family, your kids.
Yeah. So I have 2 kids. Harrison, he's 8.5. And he's amazing. He's in 2nd grade, plays baseball, basketball. My house is basically sports.
Man cave.
24/7. And then I have a 3-year-old. He just turned 3 last week, Oliver. And he is wild. So Harrison, when he was little, he was like my like sensitive, very cautious, like little angel baby.
First child.
Oh, yeah. Like 100% first child. And then Oliver comes along and just literally like knocked us on our asses.
Said, you think
like,
you know parenting?
Yeah, no, he was like, think again. You're starting all over. He is has zero fear. Like, he is stubborn. He wants to be 8 years old like his brother. So, like, that kind of adds into it. So
I feel like parents everywhere listening, like, they're smoking a cigarette. They're like, second child.
Literally.
Yep.
Well, and then my husband, Dalton, he is amazing. Like, he's the best. And he's the best dad because he's a big kid too. And so the three of them, like, they just run wild. And it's great. And I love it so much. But it's chaotic. And this stage in our life it's hard and it's busy.
In sports, I'm sure all the time. Dragging you
and
from
Dalton's
place.
the coach for Harrison's football and baseball team. And so we've got practice or game every night of the week, literally every day of the week, because Harrison's on 2 baseball teams and then the flag football. But it's like, it's so busy, but it's so fun. And I love it. You know, like tonight when we'll pick up Oliver and we'll go to my niece's softball game while Harrison's at practice, and then we'll all meet together. And it's just like a good,
I love that.
I don't know. This stage of life is really good. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
I can't imagine. And we had a similar like thought process the other day. I don't know where we were driving, but we drove past the Nixa Community Center on one of the days where they have all the soccer, and like the kids were out, and it just looks like Coachella is like there's just a horde of people.
Literally.
People are running around, people are jumping, and it looks so stressful, and it's so weird because it's almost like looking into the future in a way, because right now we're the ones driving by being like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe like spending a Saturday at practice. That's crazy.
For sure.
But then fast forward 5 years, like then it'll flip and we'll be the ones, I mean, hopefully, you know, we'll be the ones in the crowd cheering for our kid to stop chasing butterflies if the kid chases after or follows in my footsteps.
Yes.
And then, you know, somewhere along the line, there's going to be another young married couple that drives by and is like, oh, I can't believe losers spending their Saturday at practice.
Exactly.
But
that's something I think about a lot too, is like just the thought of time, you know, like I am turning 30 in June and
what are we doing to celebrate?
I don't know yet. We'll plan something.
Okay.
But I just like don't feel 30, if that makes sense. And so I feel like, you know, thinking back to when my parents were 30 and I just being in that stage of life just doesn't feel like where I am.
Yeah.
But, you know, you are in it. And so going to all those games and seeing all the other parents, sometimes it's like, whoa,
like did I get invited to this? How am I here?
Yeah. And like, I remember as a kid, like being so excited for that, like being so excited for the sports and going to the games and being, you know, like a mom who is cheering on or whatever. And now I get to be that. And it's just so fun.
I love that.
It's really cool.
And I love how you speak about it, because 2 things. One, don't let me forget that you just said you don't feel 30. We're going to come back to that. Go ahead and stick a pin in it.
Okay.
But I feel like it's just beautiful to hear how you talk about it, because I have so many mom friends, and I've said this before. I think I'm surrounded by just the best group of moms ever. Yeah. And I do see things online where people they treat it more like oh, I got soccer tonight, you know, I got this and that. And not that everyone is not entitled to their complaints, but I think it's just amazing to hear how genuinely happy you are about it. Because
and, you know, of course, that's not to say some nights I'm like, I wish we had
soccer.
literally nothing to do, you know, but it is fun. And there's something about seeing your kids so happy. And I think that's something that like has really seeing Harrison develop into being this athlete who has such a passion. Like he is just so passionate about sports. That's really cool. Yeah. You know, to see like a little piece of yourself be so passionate about something. And so that's been really fun. And I mean, it's definitely hard. Like, I won't say, you know, and I think that's something too, like moms, you know, I know there's a lot of moms that are super transparent and like, because momming is great. And it's the best thing ever. And like, I would never trade it for anything in the world. Like, I love my kids. But there are days where I come home from work and I'm like, I want none of you to talk to me for like a solid 30 minutes, you know? And it's tough. And so I think just making sure everyone, you know, people know like there is such a balance. Like one day it can be amazing and you can be like pumped and you can be going to all the games, and the next day you can be wishing for it to rain and for things to be
canceled. And I'm sure sometimes you're at the games and you're just like, smile through it. Let's get to go. Like, I'm cold. I want to go home.
For sure. Or like chasing Oliver around. Yeah. He's trying to like run onto the field and play while Dalton and Harris. I just love that you speak about it so positively, because I think we always forget how people hear what we say. And that sounds so dumb. But if I'm, for example, at the beginning of our marriage, Austin and I had a big like disagreement over something so simple, which was cooking, because cooking is his favorite thing. He loves to do it, and he's so creative, and he's always coming home with these new recipes. And at the beginning, he would cook, and it would be like this amazing, beautiful meal. And then I would complain about how many dishes there were, because that's how it is he'll cook and I'll do the dishes. And everyone knows that men use more dishes when they cook because they don't
sometimes multitask and like wash them whilst they're going.
Right,
And
right.
he'll like use a spoon to stir something, get a paper towel, wad it up, set it down. And then the next time he has to stir something, he won't retrieve that spoon. He'll get a new spoon and a new paper towel wad and then stir it again. So our kitchen is just destroyed after he cooks. But the food is amazing. He is such a great cook, but he'll spend the entire day doing something for me, like going to Sam's, getting all the stuff, researching the recipe, cook it, everything. And this makes me sound just like I'm a horrible wife. But then I know he loves it and the food would be great. I'm like, oh, such a great dinner. And then I'd be like, the kitchen is a wreck. Are you serious?
Oh,
and then
yeah.
just nag him. And finally it got to a point that we were just like, he's like, that's my outlet. And you just
Right.
complain about how much work it is.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those classic things that I did not think I was making such a big deal about the dishes because I think it's amazing that he cooks and I think it's great that he makes these amazing meals and I appreciate it so much. But the part that he was hearing more is just the complaint about what it does to me, the burden on me that
Right.
his hobby and his passion causes.
And when it's trying to be for you.
Yeah.
Well, I am Austin in your relationship. So
Yeah.
And Dalton is you. So
Yeah,
I mean, I get it, like making it, but and I get what you're saying too. You know, it's like you have to have a balance.
Yeah. But at
You
that
have
point,
to
it
have a
doesn't matter what
balance.
I think because it's his outlet, you know?
Right, right.
Like that's what brings him joy. That's how he decompresses after a long week and it's his passion and he loves to experiment and try new recipes. So is it really that big of a deal if it causes more dishes for me? No.
Yeah.
And had I known that it was like sinking in to the extent that it was, I would never have obviously said that. I was just being a wife and I was like, oh, so many dishes. Like, look at you wreck the kitchen. And as soon as he pointed out that that was something that was like hurting him a little bit more to the point where it's like, this is my thing. And all you do is talk about how much of a mess it is. I was like, right. So I had to stop. And now I'm so conscious of never complaining about what it does to me. Like never complaining if he wants to make a pit stop at the grocery store to get some obscure dried chili because he wants to make a recipe that he saw on YouTube Shorts. So I'm always down for that because I know that's what fulfills him. And similarly with your kids, if they had heard you always talking about, oh, we have soccer tonight, I'm gonna run here, and then I have to it's my week to bring snacks and everything, then even if they know that you support them, then subconsciously you still feel that burden that it causes on someone else.
Oh, yeah.
And that can start to taint your love for it.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, just that concept of watching what you say in general is huge. Like, and that's something, you know, I have quite a bit of childhood trauma that I'm working through. And that's one thing that I want so much for my kids is like for them to never feel like anything I said was like, oof, like, you know, whether it's not maybe like you said, not to them, like maybe it's just like, oh, I don't want to be doing this today or whatever. They're like, oh, she doesn't want to be with me, you know? And like, that's something that it really
or just your tone,
have.
like in that, just different things. And it's the same thing that we've talked about on this podcast before with your husband, because of course I don't have kids, but the relationship to Austin is the closest one in my life.
Yeah.
So if I'm coming home and I see him, I'm the main person in his life. He's the main person in my life, but he's also my safe place. So if I come home and I'm just bitching and complaining and like my ugliest self with him because I can be safe with him, then what does he see every time he comes home is me complaining and being negative. And I don't know, I'm such a pivotal character in his life, just like he is in mine. So I have the ability to make his life resoundingly positive and uplifting, or it can just be negative and draining and everything else.
Well, and that's like when we did live in Colorado, Dalton and I lived there and Harrison from 2018 to 2020. We moved back right when COVID hit. And when I was out there, I started going to a therapist and she was great. And she said something to me once that I just have really held on to. It's, you know, repair is important. And so if you're feeling, you know, whether it's kids or your husband or whomever you're around, if you're having a day where you know, like you're upset, like you're sad, you're mad, you don't want to do anything, you know, you like speak that and say, you know, like I'll say to Harrison, like, hey, I'm super upset today and you might see mommy cry or whatever it may be. Like you might see it, but it has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
You know,
that's heavy on
huge.
that.
Huge. You know, and that's something that I think in my own life, you know, in my own childhood, I never heard that. And so, you know, any tension, any argument, any whatever,
you think
know,
it's you,
always,
a reflection of you.
Always, you know, and that's something that I've carried into adulthood. You know, anyone, if I don't get a text back that has an exclamation point, you know, it's it's like, oh, that person literally hates me.
They want me dead.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
like
plotting,
they're so mad at me.
Yes.
Yeah. If I don't, you know, just like and which I know, you know, logically that's so silly, but that stems all the way back to like, you know, sometimes you have to be open and tell whoever is around you, like, hey, you're not at fault.
Yes.
I'm having these feelings, which is okay, but it's not because of you. You know?
I try really hard to do that because I'm obviously way more emotional than Austin is because he's a brick wall. But I feel like that's something that I've tried hard to implement because I can be a little irrational sometimes. And even yesterday, like we talked, I was having just a rougher day. Nothing bad, but just those days where things just hit you harder than usual.
Yeah.
And I mean, full transparency, everyone knows that we're obviously trying to start a family. And as much as I'm so happy for my friends that are starting theirs and announcing their pregnancies, sometimes it just hits harder than usual.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing for them. And I know that I have been so, like, we are still so early in our trying to conceive journey. So it feels a little bit short-sighted to be like, oh, it's so difficult on me, because I know it could happen for us anytime. And at the time that we are blessed with a baby, then it's going to seem like that for our waiting period. But when you're in the thick of it, it seems like it's going on forever. And you're like waiting for your hormones to level out and waiting for this and waiting for that. It just feels like it never ends. So most of the time I'm okay. And I'm like, oh no, I'm great. Like, I know God has a plan for us. We're waiting. I have peace about that. And sometimes it's just like, do I though?
Yeah.
And yesterday was one of those days. So I had a call Austin and I was like, I'm just not having a happy day. Like, I'm having a little bit of the big sad today. And he was so sweet. He brought me flowers and they were Cinco de Mayo flowers on the label, which made us both laugh because I didn't know that was a flower occasion.
That's hilarious.
But it was just like the sweet things. And then it's just the tiny, like just the fact that he knew meant that he didn't come home, you know, complaining about his day, maybe right off the bat, which usually I'm in a great space. I'm like, lay it on me, babe.
Yeah.
Let's complain.
I want to hear it.
Yeah. Who messed up on the job site today? But then like you just the shifts that you have in marriage, because you just sometimes need different things. And I don't know. I think that it's never a bad thing to be open about your emotions, and that's new.
And I think like we had talked about yesterday, I think, it's totally valid to feel two feelings at one time.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that I think I've learned a lot recently is like, you can feel happy for someone, but at the same time be mad and sad and upset. And
Absolutely.
that's okay.
Absolutely.
Like in your situation, you should be mad, sad, and upset. That's, something happened to you that was traumatic and, you're trying to do something, and those feelings you have because, you're passionate about what you want, and it's okay for you to feel that way and also be excited for your friends. And I think that in so many things, it's okay for me to be sad and grieving, but also at the same time, like, be happy and with my kids and, doing all these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's just important for people to remember is like, that's okay.
And like you said at the beginning, like taking the good moments when you have the good moments, because the bad moments don't wait and they don't necessarily leave that quickly either. So if you have things that make you happy, even in the midst of your grief, then you should take every opportunity to celebrate life and to be present and smile. And for those who don't know, Hannah lost her dad suddenly earlier this year. And we don't have to get into all of that, but you have been going through just some big emotions.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
As sad as it is, I think we both have struggled with our own separate journeys. I'm very thankful to have had your friendship through the whole thing.
Yeah, same.
But that's one of the things that we've all talked about is just, whenever you go through that stage where life doesn't feel significant, because in the face of something so big, like losing a parent, then all of a sudden you're like, really, I have to go make a coffee today? Like, what makes you happy? So a big part of what we've spoken about over the past few months has been, your journey back to finding the sunshine in life. Do you want to talk about some of the things that have brought you that sunshine, like just the little things?
Yeah. So like Hannah said, I lost my dad in January, and my dad was my best friend. Like I said, I have quite a bit of childhood trauma actually with my whole family, but a lot with my mom, and we don't have a great relationship. And it's, boundaries have been set on that. And my dad had always been the one that was like my backbone, my supporter. And so losing him was really hard. I say is really hard, and it's been 3 months and it's still every day. It feels new. I think I'm still learning the things that I'm doing to make me happy. I think, you had said to me one time, actually, you were like, just find, little things, like whether it's, a coconut matcha or whatever it is. And so that's something that I've really been focusing on is like, what are the small things that I can do to kind of bring me out of it? Talking with friends, that's a huge one. Like, and that's something that I am such a person where like, I need to get it out. Like my head has so many words in it all the time that I just need to word vomit sometimes. So having those people that will allow me to do that is really nice, and that's been really helpful with grieving, because too, I was actually talking to Dalton about this last night because I told him that we were recording today, and he was like, well, what are you going to talk about? And so I was telling him, and he was like, are you going to talk about your dad? And I was like, I think so, you know, because I think there's so cathartic and so therapeutic about being able to kind of tell your story. And
Absolutely.
and that's something that I've never really done. You know, since I was a kid, I've always had a front. Like I've always had a happy face, and there's just so much. And so I think just speaking how I actually feel and what's actually happening has been like the biggest help.
Well, I'm proud of you for
Thank
that
you.
because that's very difficult.
It
and
is.
It's always
really
easier
hard.
to shut it down, put it deep down, and bury it, and never speak about it again. And
Yeah.
I think that letting it out is the harder decision, but I think it's the one that allows you to heal more.
Yeah, for sure.
And with my own journey, I mean, it's definitely different. I would never liken it to losing a parent, but it's grief in its own right.
Yeah.
And whenever I recorded that episode about my miscarriage, I never intended to air it. It was kind of like I just had to get it out. And every time I would speak to anyone in my life, I would start bawling. So, and I have the front of just being silly online, and most of that is my personality. I'm just a whimsical being.
Yeah.
So it's natural, but it's very difficult for me to talk about deep things or personal things. And it almost feels like I'm asking for sympathy in a way that I don't feel comfortable. And I never think that about other people who openly express themselves.
Yeah.
I actually admire it in others. But whenever it's me, it feels like I'm asking for sympathy or attention in some way.
For sure. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and especially in the face of something like miscarriage or death of a family member, it seems tactless somehow to be speaking about it, even if it has helped me when someone else has shared about it.
Right.
Somehow I have a double standard in my own mind.
And I feel like we all have that, you know, because I feel the same way. There's countless times where, I mean, I'll text people be like, I'm so sorry, I'm just having a bad day. It's like, you don't have to be sorry.
No, you're just having a bad
and,
day.
But I agree, you know, it's like sometimes you feel like you don't want to burden people.
Oh, yeah.
When in reality, like, it's not a burden, you know, because it is a big deal. Grieving is huge. And so
it changes who you are as a person.
Oh, for sure.
And the thing about mine, like I don't claim to have, done something revolutionary because I just spoke about what happened to me, but I see God every single day, and the way that it was received in that episode has reached a larger audience than any of the other episodes, than a lot of episodes combined.
Yeah.
And across all the platforms we released it on, it's had like 3,000 people listen to it, which might not seem crazy like by the standard of social media.
But it is.
But if I think about, 3,000 people have heard me crying on a camera and talking about my most intimate moments and the depths of my grief and everything else, that is already impactful to me. But then at the same time, I get messages and emails and DMs weekly from strangers and from women. And it honestly breaks my heart, and it makes me cry every week. But I get messages from people that have sought out my account just to say, like, thank you for releasing that, because I hadn't heard from anyone else that was going through the same thing. And then I'm like, how did I almost talk myself out of something that God is using for so many reasons?
Right.
And it still is challenging for me. And sometimes I have those moments where I'm like, I can't believe I put that out there. I can't believe I, spoke about all of that. And I haven't gone back and listened to it because I just don't want to.
Right.
But the thought that something so personal and deep is just being listened to by people I will never meet sometimes gets to me. But at the same time, to think of women who have gone through what I went through and didn't have the support that I necessarily had, because that's what healed me, was my people being there for me.
Yeah.
And as with anything, it's a work in progress, but I don't think I would have made it through the first couple weeks feeling as loved as I did and as hopeful as I did without the women that were brave enough to share their story and so on. So I think that speaking about it is brave.
I think so. And I think it's good because I think, and you and I've talked to a lot of people about this. I mean, since my dad has passed, I have a close friend, Bree, whose, dad passed around the same time.
Right.
And so we've been able to really, connect and support each other. And Simone has lost her dad. And so it's been really great to have that support because I do think it's just so huge. You can't get through things without support.
Of course.
You know, and I think, those little things are just so huge. Like people dropping off things on the doorstep. Like you had said, I remember Bree and I brought you coffee or whatever it is. And, and I think no grief is too big or too small. And I think everyone has their own grief. And, you know, when you lose someone, again, as cliche as it sounds, like you never really understand grief until you go through it.
Right.
And that's something that I often think about. I never thought my dad would pass first. My mom has some illnesses and some mental struggles, and so my whole life, like I had like almost trained myself to like be
Expect
ready.
it,
Be ready for when she would pass. And so when he did, it was just kind of like a gut punch. You know, it was just something that was totally unexpected and just tragic. And so, finding the community that would help out with that and help me heal has been really huge. And, having people that support you and love you, I think will get you so far in life.
Absolutely.
And my husband has been more than incredible.
Yeah.
Like he is just does the sweetest things, and it is tough. I told you this too. Like I think I look at grief as like being in a fishbowl. And, when you're in the sads and right when it happens, or right, and even now, you're inside this fishbowl and you see everyone passing around you, and like everyone is just going, they're moving on with their lives, and you're just stuck. Like you can't do anything. And having people be able to pull you out of that fishbowl and be like, you can still be there, but also move on and go with the world as well.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done.
Of course,
there are days where I feel like I can't do anything.
Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and then 5 steps back.
Exactly.
And then sometimes
it hits you out of nowhere. That's something that I heard a lot from people. Is like, you'll be great and happy, and then 1 second you'll just be like, holy crap.
And sometimes there's no trigger. Sometimes it just is you wake up with the big sad and that's it.
And I think too, like, being in the work that I am, I talk to people all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, for however long a day, people are saying, hi, how are you?
And
I'm like, terrible. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think while that's also been probably one of the hardest things I've had to do is be that, it's also been kind of helpful because, A, being busy, B, doing something that I love, but also kind of sometimes having to be like, oh, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah.
Not that it like tricks
but
your
it kind of
it kind of like tricks your mind and be like, okay, I'm fine right now, And so I don't know. It's a lot of learning.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's a lot of learning.
It definitely is. It's one of those things where you have to find the balance between giving yourself the grace to mourn and to be as sad for as long as you need, while also knowing that you can't stay there forever.
Right.
And letting yourself be in that spot. And like we've talked about before, sometimes you have to give yourself a deadline to where it's like, I can be as sad as I want to, as unproductive as I need to be, as reclusive and everything until this day. Yeah. But when this day comes, like I'm going to get myself out of the house. I'm going to get myself out of bed. I'm going to put makeup on. And like, even if it's just going to get a coffee, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I struggled at the beginning because I felt like everything was trivial. So you obviously can't hide from the world forever.
Right.
And you have the ability to take time where you need, but you have to get back to real life at some point. And other people, unfortunately, would just never recognize your grief the way that you do. So to other people, it's like, okay, like when are you coming back?
Yeah.
So my clients were more than understanding. I really have nothing to complain about with them, but it's just, you feel like you have to get back out into the world. And the first couple of things that you do, it's always like, I'm going to go take photos to make a TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Like it just, everything feels so trivial in the face of something big. But at the same time, that's why I think for me, it helped to look for small things to make me happy. And I hope the same thing for you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I kind of talked to you about this before too, is like, I think, we all have our percentage of how we are during the day, like what you can give, how much you've got in you. And I think for the past 3 months, like I'm nearing 50. Like we're getting there.
Good. That's amazing.
But it's, whenever you have all these different avenues, I'm a full-time mom. I work full-time. I, have all these different things. It's like you have to divide yourself into so many places. And sometimes when you're not at 100%, it makes it really hard to divide yourself. And so I think, in that division, finding the little things that make you happy in each of those spaces has, what's really helped me, like dividing myself in between being at work, being happy face, talking to customers, like finding something little there, which is usually doing something creative or like making a drink that I like or seeing a customer that I like finding my happy there and then being able to give the rest to my family and to myself, and that's something that I've learned too, is like, it's okay to take a minute for yourself and not feel guilty about it.
It's encouraged.
Yeah. And actually, I think that is where, for so many years, like I just have a lot of guilt factor and I think that's just trauma based. Like I just feel guilty for anything that I do. Yeah. And so just learning like, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't let myself do that for these past 3 months.
Absolutely. You won't continue to grow and make that 50% to a 70% if you don't give yourself the time.
Right.
And people always forget, like, you're a full-time worker, you're a full-time mom, but you also live in your own head full-time. Yeah. And that in itself is very exhausting whenever you're dealing with grief or anything that's that heavy. So doing all of those things, it's like, well, yeah, you need to go to work and yeah, you need to take care of your kids. But I think that sometimes we just gloss over the fact that like you're living with those thoughts and those memories and that heaviness in your head and heart 24/7.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, yeah, I can take the time, I can go back out, I can shoot content, I can be with clients, but just the fatigue that comes with grief from carrying all of that and trying to like push the thoughts to the back of your head and to not make yourself cry all the time. Like it just is, it's difficult.
Oh yeah. It's very tough. And like I said, you know, my brother and I, so my brother is 7.5 years younger than me. And we are super, super close. And he has been another just kind of like rock through all of this. You know, we've gone through so much together, you know, just in our childhood to now. We've just gone through a lot. And so having him has been really nice. And we've talked about too, and I've talked about with other people, like, because of the boundaries that we have set with our mom and we don't have a relationship with her, it's like now we don't have a relationship. We don't have a parent. And so finding like, how can we make that, you know, as shitty as it is, like how can we make a positive out of it? And like, you know, for Easter, he and his fiance, they set up an Easter egg hunt for the kids and made them Easter baskets. And
I love that.
Oliver's birthday party, like they just made it really special. And so that's another little thing that's kind of really brought me through because, you know, again, there's so much trauma prior, and then my dad passing, it's just like a whole ball of all this stuff. And so to find something that can kind of not heal, but like begin to heal both pieces is really nice. Yeah. You know, it's been really good.
It's amazing that you have each other. How are we on time? Because I want to be conscious of you.
My watch is dead.
Oh. Hannah has to go sling lattes at some point
we got
today.
like 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to what you said about being 30 but not feeling 30.
Yeah.
So I think that it's so crazy because I've had that several times too. On the one hand where I'm like, okay, I'm 25, I'm married, I should be past this. Then I also think, oh my gosh, I'm only 25. Like what's the problem? Like, what are people expecting from me?
Yeah.
Or it's so silly whenever I'll post something dumb online on my story, knowing that I have, you know, business professionals that follow me and I'm not ashamed. Like I don't post anything bad. There's nothing, it's just silly.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think, you know, should I be putting this meme in my photo dump? Should I be doing these things? Like, should I be posting this zoomed in face of me, like making a dumb thing? But then I also think like, no, I'm 25, but at the same time, who cares? Like, why do we have this impression that we have to lose our fun and our whimsy in favor of becoming more professional and more serious as we get older?
I agree.
Why do we have to desaturate our lives and our personalities?
And
as
I don't
we
think
age?
you should have to, you know, and I think, and I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing, but I have a very weird thing with age. I don't know how old anyone is. I always think they're either younger or older. Like
anyone that's like 17 to 35, my age.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've thought Callie was the same age for the past like 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, like she's not aged at all.
Right. Oh yeah.
And so there's an influencer I like, Avery Woods. I don't know if you've seen her on TikTok. I thought she was like mid-30s. She just had her 29th birthday.
Oh,
so
right.
she's younger than I am. But I think, you know, yeah, like why does it necessarily matter? You know, if you're 27 years old or 25 years old or 34 years old and you want to post like a silly little meme,
right?
Who cares?
Well, like if we're thinking about like what's the correlation between being more serious and being a better parent or being a better wife?
Yeah.
You know, I would even argue that sometimes maybe it makes you worse at those things because you're not able to have more fun. And
I would 1000%
life
agree.
is meant to be had, like fun is supposed to be had at all times.
Especially with kids. I mean, if I was someone who was like super serious and didn't like fart jokes and all of that, I'd be miserable.
Oh my gosh,
know?
yeah.
It's like you have to enjoy life and not worry about like I'm too old for this or you know, I mean, like I said, I'm approaching 30 and I still like to watch Bob's Burgers with my 8-year-old. Like it's
no, and the number of times that Hannah sends me Snapchats of Harrison and she's like, look, and he's wearing like a shirt that I own.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a Spider-Man shirt. Like we have a lot of similarities. But at the same time, I'm not advocating for, you know, just drifting through life and never getting serious.
For sure, yeah.
And not being able to have depth or to take things seriously or pursue, you know, financial security, things like that. I think those are all very important things.
Absolutely.
However, I think that you don't have to, you can not only be productive by being serious. Yeah. They're not mutually exclusive. Like I can run a business and still be cracking jokes and wearing graphic t-shirts with Spider-Man's face on them. And like, I just think that we shouldn't relegate ourselves to being one or the other. And like, as we get older, there's like a downward trend as to how goofy we can be or how much we can, you know, make our friends laugh. And, you know, at what point can we just stop saying like, oh, she's too old for that?
For sure. Well, and I like to think about now like life and memories, you know, and like what kind of memory is it for your kids or your family or your husband if it's like she was always so serious. Yeah. You know, like she was didn't didn't like to have fun. Like, and that's just no way to live life.
No.
You know, of course, you do have to be professional in settings. You have to get your shit together.
Exactly.
And all
know
those
the
things.
moment, know the times for sure.
Yes, know the line. Like if you can read a room, you can know when it's okay to like be funny and when not, you know, and I think you and I have a very similar sense of humor. It's very sarcastic, stupid, dry, like, you know, just like that. And I think that's great. Right. And I think that doesn't matter if you're young or old. That's a great quality to have.
Exactly. I just think we should never age out of being silly, and we should stop, especially with women. I think a lot of times we look around and like we would never look at a group of men getting drunk on the golf course and be like, that's someone's father. Like they need to grow up. That's embarrassing.
Right.
But then if you see a group of women that, you know, go for margaritas, they're having a good time. It's like, is that someone's mom? Like, do you have children?
Yes.
And I don't know why we do that. Like when did we start putting a cap on just fun and being...
It's like when you're kids and you see your teacher at a restaurant, it's like, oh my gosh, what is she doing? And now it's like, I'm almost 30. I'm like, yeah, we do have a life.
Yeah. You know? And I think we should encourage that. And again, everything goes with a grain of salt. Like I think that we should obviously take care of our children in our lives. But I don't think that it has to omit everything else that's good. So whenever you said that, like I'm 30, but I don't feel 30. I think that's great that you feel younger than you are. You feel like just more colorful. Yeah. But at the same time, like why can't 30 feel awesome?
Well, and it's so interesting because like, you know, 30 to me has always been old.
Yeah.
You know, like I've always been like, once I hit 30, like that's it. That's old. Like, and now being where I am, I don't feel like I'm in the stage of life where I would consider old. No. You know what I mean? Like, and which it's just so funny growing up and you just learn different things and you learn how life actually is. Right. And, you know, some of the things that your parents told you when you were a kid and you were like, yeah, I mean they're right, unfortunately, for some of them, and but it's just weird. It's weird turning an age and not feeling like you're there. Yeah, but also knowing that, you know, like I said, this influencer, she just turned 29. You know, that just shows you that like you don't have to be 35 to be successful, to be whatever it may be, and I think that's important too.
I agree. I fully agree. And it's so difficult to say like, what is an age supposed to feel like? Because it's different for every person.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like I have people that are my age that are like nowhere close to having children or getting married. And they're like, screw that. I'm young. Like you only live once. I'm going to do everything that I want to do. Couldn't even think about settling down. And then I have friends that are also my age that have 2 kids and like have been married for 7 years. Yeah. You know, that's on being in the Midwest. Yeah. But I have friends that like are so happy and fulfilled both ways. So my 25 could be different than their 25. And that could be different from where you were at 25. Sure. And that's amazing, you know?
I think life more equates, as you get older into an adult, more equates to like seasons of life rather than ages, you know? Like
exactly.
Whether or not I'm 29 or 30, you know, this is a certain season in my life and those change and they fluctuate and I think that's what you grow with. Yeah. You know, not obviously you grow with your age and you get older each year, but I think
your knees start to hurt and you have to get Botox or whatever.
But it's fine.
That's why Skin Wise exists.
Exactly. That's why we go to free.
Exactly. Me texting her before this, I'm like, hey.
I know. I literally was looking in the mirror on the way here. I was like, oh, I wish.
No, that's the tricky thing because obviously you can't get Botox whenever you're pregnant, and being someone that's like hoping to get pregnant, I'm like, I want to get it done as late as I can. Like
just pump it all in there. So I'm like,
I keep like every time I get like it starts to wear off, I'm like, gotta get more. Yeah. Because you never know. So I'm just like, hey,
gotta get it in. Gotta get it in.
Okay. Well, I know you have to leave. I could talk to you for hours and hours, and I will.
Yeah, we'll talk more.
And I will. But thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Thank you for fueling all the episodes before this. I love you so much. You're an amazing person.
Thank you.
Drop your handle so people can follow you. I'll tag you. But
okay. So I got a couple handles. You can follow Urban Grounds at Urban Grounds 417 on Instagram. Yep. You can follow me. I think it's hannahc.hicks. Definitely come out to Urban Grounds for some coffee. Like Hannah said, we've got some cool events. Next month we'll have Bunko. I said it was the first Thursday, but I believe it's the second Thursday because this Thursday.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's not this Thursday. But we'll be posting about it soon. It'll be super fun.
It'll be amazing. Thank you. I love you so much. And I will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.